Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Derek and Craig. We're going to get started this morning talking about more about different sites and how we work them and everything, with these detectors and what frequencies and oh gosh, Craig, there's so many aspects of metal detectors, anyways. How they work and everything. The newest ones, of course. We were talking just before the show about the Simplex again, and but a lot of the machines we've had in the past, it's almost like they took the technology, Craig, and well, prior to about 10 years ago, and it was just taking the same kind of technology, so to speak, and just trying to beef it up, amp it up. Um, I saw this with when the Nautilus came out and stuff. The premise was still the same about the detector, but it's like nowadays they have all these computer chips, and I don't even know how these things work. I mean, I'm kind of clueless as far as the internal workings of these detectors. I think you are too. We just know that they're better and they work better, and it's an easier go of it as far as learning. But I like the way they've incorporated the sound. Uh, I think we've talked about this on the show before. A couple 3 or 4 months ago, actually longer than that ago, about how sound plays a big role in the way that the way we're hearing information from these detectors. Some of the older ones, I guess, Craig, when you were talking like the Soros and stuff like that back in the day when you were selling those, we always listened for the rounded sound, trying to describe nuance and uh, understand what we're hearing and putting it into, finding treasure, finding good things in the ground. And I think they're getting to that point now where they've turned sound, uh, especially with the Equinox with the Simplex. There's so much information in there um, to be able to ID targets. I don't know how they're doing it. It's pretty cool though. I was always hoping somebody would come up with these machines to do this a little bit better. I don't know if that was their intent. Um, what's your thoughts on that, Craig? I think it was their intent or their idea of coming up with sound that can give more information that we can hear, that we understand quicker. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think this cell phone technology they're using, with these faster chips and stuff, it's was started by Deus, and you see, the Equinox comes out with the new screen and the faster chips. And it's made a whole big difference. I mean, these things can process so much faster. Just think a couple of years from now what's going to happen, because it seems like, with Moore's law, these chips double and triple, or double, every couple of years now in speed. And,
Well,
what
even
they can do.
Bluetooth technology. I mean, they're starting to send. They said they're going to start sending data through Bluetooth. I
Yeah,
mean, it wasn't that long ago because I've been in this. Well, Craig, we were right at the cusp of that, anyways. With dealing with the one company we were dealing with, that the Bluetooth technology, it wasn't there yet. It wasn't fast enough. There was lag, even though it was minor
yeah.
for a detectorist.
They
The
had a
lag is a
couple,
big deal. Now they.
they had a couple other protocols back then, like Clear and I can't remember what the other one was called, but they just weren't fast enough. There was just a delay. You get the coil over the target, and then you pass by, and then you hear the target. And it
Right.
just wasn't good. But
And that's what I saw
out.
on the wireless headphones, the earbuds we were talking about, the same kind of thing, that you had to get low latency. Uh, because even the guy in the video was like, when he scanned over the target, it would beep 6 inches after the coil went over the target, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for to center in and pinpoint on a target, you can miss a target rather easily
Yeah.
with a low without a low latency. Uh, that's what I ran into with the whites. This is back in the day now, guys. This is back in '08, '09, when whites had their the real nice headphones at the time. Well, still are nice over the ear cuff. I mean, a lot of technology in them. It's all Bluetooth, and I'd used those since the day I started with that machine. And a buddy of mine gave me a pair of Sunray Golds, which were wired headphones. And man, the difference. I was like, oh my God, I've been missing targets. I didn't realize it because I'd never used wired headphones. in that machine or whatever. I just took it for granted that it was going to be just like wired headphones. And back then, it just wasn't. I mean, it was still good, don't get me wrong. I mean, they were probably the first ones I remember having wireless headphones that were significantly, like over the top at the time. And then, of course, Deus and everything, from like 2000, the Technics came out with a set, and they were using FM technology. If I remember right, they're wireless headphones. And they had a little box, you plug it into the back of it. I don't know a lot about those because I never really did buy them, try them out, but I just went to wired headphones like you, Craig. I mean, you've always been with wired headphones, whether they were, whatever kinds you probably had a dozen different kinds of headphones, in your career. I mean, I remember you tried Grey Ghost for a while, and that didn't work out real good, or whatever it was. And
I've never had Grey Ghost.
No, you had.
Alrad,
yeah.
And I used Technetica. Basically, over the years, I had basically, $15 to $20 headphones, and some of them were fairly, durable and stuff. But the cord, the plug going into the machine is the problem I've had over the years.
Right, if they don't use the right kind of connectors, yeah.
And the straight plug, I don't like those. It just doesn't work. And the ones now with the shaped like an L,
90 degree.
It takes all the stress off of them. Plus, I have the Killer Bee Wasps, and those things, God, they're so durable. The leather on it still looks brand new, and they're probably, I don't know, 6 years old, maybe 5 years old.
Yeah, they are. You got them in 2015 or something like that, because you got yours, and I got mine right after you got yours, I think it was, because we were switching up on that. I got the pinpointer first, and you got the headphones first, but yeah, they're really.
But I, with this Equinox, with the headphone, I got the 800 because I wanted to, have the headphones sync properly and all that instead of, worrying about, and they're very light and they switch on pretty quick and everything. And once you start using wireless headphones, you don't want to go back to a cord. It's like being in jail.
Yeah. I'm actually looking more the route. I'm going to try to find a good set of, not necessarily expensive, but I need to find a pair of the earbuds that are wireless to see if I can get them to link into the Simplex. They should. I mean, it's Bluetooth technology, but to have the low latency or whatever, to see what the lag is on them, for me, it'd be real easy to use those. I'm kind of a wired head. I mean, like I said, I've gotten so used to them. I just got the detector, the Simplex, without the wireless headphones. I mean, without them with them. I think I paid, I don't know, it was $250 for the machine. And if I got in the wireless headphones, I think it would be $339 or something. But they're good quality. I mean, they're $80 or $100. I think there's a $100 set of headphones anyways. They're durable. Quest had a good set too, Craig. I mean, they were a lot like the Equinox over the ear and everything. And they work good. I never had any problem out of them. It seemed like they were dead on for the most part with the lag and everything. It was pretty much dead on. You weren't going to hear it too much. But when we were involved with the Blissful ones I had, I mean, that's the reason. They just weren't durable enough. They had these transmitter box and a receiver box, and they were wireless, but you had to connect wires to those. Like for your wired headphone. And it was like, okay, all this jumbled mess, and it's like you're going to break these wires in like 2 seconds out in the field. And so
it's
I had
like the Equinox comes with this little box, so you can take your wired headphones and put them in the box and then have it translate, come through. But I don't want a box.
No,
in my pocket with the cord, and I'm done with all that. If it doesn't have, I buy a machine from now on, it's going to have Bluetooth wireless headphones. But
well, the thing is, we're so tough on them. If you're out in the middle of a pasture, you could use something like that with the wire on them and everything. But we're like, I don't know, over in the UK or out in just the middle of a field here in the US. You start going into the woods or whatever. I mean, you're going to snag. You have to have a decent cord on these well, no, even on the wired headphones, like the Killer Bees and the Sunray Golds and the Grey Ghosts, they have that heavy duty cord on there. You can snatch on it, get it caught on a branch, get it caught on your shovel handle, or I don't know, whatever, and it'll survive it. It normally won't break under normal conditions, but these real thin wired earbud wire like kind of things, you're going to snap those in a heartbeat, out there in the woods, I think. So all these external boxes and stuff just getting away from me. I'm not paying attention to that. I'm metal detecting. So, I mean, that's why, we're kind of tough on detectors here in the U.S. Believe me, I've seen guys, they've sent them to me, they're run over by a car and dropped and broken and thrown in water, and, just never know what's going to happen. Well, that one guy did, Greg, when he fell with the detector and had the coil wire too tight. And when he fell, it separated the inside of the wire, broke the wire essentially, and had to replace the coil because the wire is all screwed up. It does happen. A lot of people think you got to wrap those coil wires so doggone tight. You don't. You just make them just barely snug as you twist them up the detector shaft. The biggest thing is you don't want them flopping around because those actually have copper in them or whatever. Kind of metal, and it can actually set your detector off if you have them real loose. I've seen guys, I think it was Chris Angle did that one time. He was hunting in the wind. There was a lot of wind out there, and he had too much slack in his coil cable, and the wind was blowing it, and his detector was falsing, he thought. And he said, man, that's amazing. If you tighten up the coil cable a little bit, it doesn't do that. I said, yeah, it's... And he's not a rookie either. He's been doing this, detecting stuff for like 40 years. It's just one of the things he overlooked that day. So, but you don't need to snug them down. Don't pull those things tight. That's your life, your lifeline for your coil to your control box. You damage that, well, you just, you might as well buy another coil. It's not gonna react right. But just make them just barely snug all the way up the detector shaft and connect them into the back. Make sure you have have them plugged in good. Have them, not tightened down. Don't crank them down. You just want to, get them nice and firmly in there so that they don't leak any water in there. Like if you're water hunting and everything, you want to make sure everything's, just tight enough. You don't want to over tighten or you end up screwing up the gaskets and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's just, the technology they have now, and it's just kind of getting better. I don't know if it's possible to make Bluetooth faster, but I think it is. Craig, I don't think
they're already working on it.
Yeah.
Just in the last few years,
excuse me.
I know, like Apple, I think they went to 4.2. They might even be going to 4.3, and then I'm hearing that, they're going to speed it up to the point where they're going to be able to transfer data, through the Bluetooth, just like you would with a wire, and the chips are just going to they're just going to keep getting faster and faster. It's like they're putting Apple's putting neural chips and artificial intelligence chips besides the regular chip, so what if they have a new, a detector that has an artificial intelligence chip and it starts analyzing what you're looking for and then starts, calibrating the,
right.
The signals better, or telling you, hey, it's, giving you better heads up that this might be a better target. But
we've often said a lot of the new. I'm just using the Blisstal as an example. When you go over a target and it's not the greatest, you keep on going over it. You speed up the coil and it's grabbing it better and better and better. It's learning. In a way, it's learning. I don't know what these processors are. The Equinox kind of does it. The Simplex is kind. They're right on the cusp of doing this, I think, and not even realizing it. Maybe they are realizing it. I don't know.
One thing I just realized is, they got. The Equinox has 5 frequencies, and or is it more? I can't remember, but it's got the IQ, multi-frequency. What if they can come up with, maybe 20 frequencies at the same time? That would be crazy, wouldn't it? If they expand it even further. That might even give them more data on, maybe each frequency could be tweaked to the point where it's given the, more information. And as chips go faster, that it can probably, some of these Apple chips they're using are like trillion processes a second. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like they get, almost like it's involving surface area too, Craig, or size or shape. I can't say it for 100%. With the Simplex, I'm noticing more and more. I get so many different sounds out of this machine, different versions of a tone. You've heard it on the video. It's like, okay, that's a zippy sound, and this is a elongated sound, and this is, and it's, it depends on when I'm digging up out of the ground. It come out with a, an aluminum lid that's, like a bigger than a milk cap, gallon milk cap, and then all of a sudden I'll get a piece of cast iron, but there's definitely a difference in the sound according to what the size of the item is and stuff like that. And even the cast iron, the different kinds of, not different kinds, cast iron's cast iron, but what they made it with. Sometimes I'll get a solid repeatable 4 on the VDI number. Other times it'll jump up into the 60s and back down again, and kind of confused me for a minute. So, well, that's cast iron. It's the only thing in the hole. It has to be the makeup of the piece of metal or the piece of cast is what's doing that, or maybe or shape. I don't know.
You could be picking up the oxidation in the ground.
True. Yeah.
Like I get signals every once in a while. I run the Equinox, with basically no bias in the iron, and I'll pick up iron sometimes that's really heavy, in both directions, and it'll read good on the meter, but it's an overpowering type of signal, and so I can see down the road that they'll be able to, probably ID big iron even.
Iron doesn't seem to be as much of a problem, Craig, at all. If they've done a good job on that. At least with this Simplex, I know when it's iron. It doesn't even ring up on, like 20 penny spikes and stuff. It may give me a signal, but it's definitely, it's probably iron. It's not the same way as it was. Even 10 years ago, square nails used to be a nightmare for some detectors. They were always, and even now they still do that a little bit with this newer technology. I'm digging square nails, and and it was just ringing up as regular iron, which wasn't the case. I guess we're just having to learn a different way with different detector. The learning curve on them. It's not a bad thing. It's doing stuff that we've always wanted detectors to do. It's even, we've talked about being able to discriminate out aluminum. If they can knock out aluminum like they do iron, but still keep gold and nickel in the range, still, have a detector do that. That'd be awesome for park hunters, coin shooters. They don't have to dig that can saw or the pull tabs anymore, but yet they could still get a gold ring and all the nickels they want. I don't think the technology's that far off right now. The Ballistal could do it. I can knock out an entire, beer can, but still get a penny, dime, or quarter. It's not, there's no other detector that can do that I know of. To this day, I know that like the Simplex, it hits beer. It's different sound, Craig, on the can slaw, and you got to dig it because it's a higher range. I'm a relic hunter, so I'm going to dig anything that has a repeatable signal of some kind. But I've noticed that some of the what we call the junkier targets that we don't really want, with the can slaw and stuff like that, do jump quite a bit on the VDI numbers. They're not locked in. Example like the White Spectra V3, like bottle caps. They were a constant. Well, you kind of knew they were bottle caps, but they come up as a quarter on the VDI number and everything, and they were pretty much right in there. They would jump around a little bit, but nowadays we're talking 10 years later. It's jumping a lot. Shotgun shells are all over the place for me, anyways. I get very few that lock on, and when they do, it's usually a VDI 20 out of 99. And I don't know if you're doing the same thing or not with the Equinox, as I'm doing with the Simmons.
Well, the steel bottle caps are, they sound bad, and they read like a nickel or 15 usually on the Equinox.
Yeah, definitely noticeable. Yeah.
Yeah, there was machines in the past that just were, God, steel bottle caps would drive you crazy.
Yeah.
But it's when I had the Desoras, I usually didn't take steel bottle caps. It was, it would discriminate them. But there was other machines that wouldn't. It's
we dealing too with sound too. I mean oh shoot, I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It's the resonance of some of these detectors from overseas and stuff were full resonance, where they would work fantastic on a like an air test or in really really good ground. They would work great, and then most of the detectors out were over here in the States and stuff like that were low resonance, which they did have resonant sound, but they would work in most ground and stuff like that, and with the Bliss didn't have resonance, and it was such a difference. I don't know, but electronic wise or what that was doing, but that's the way it was explained to me, that if they're using full resonance on some of those, I think it was like the Gold Mask detector and the a lot of these ones that were kind of shoddy at the time. They made great claims, but they couldn't work in the ground. They couldn't work in the high mineralization and stuff very well. It dealt with that, but now they've switched up these processors, Craig, and game changer. I mean, it really is. With kilohertz. Yeah. I mean, it used to be high kilohertz for gold and stuff like that, low conductors, and low kilohertz for silver, which is a high conductor. And then you had, the Minelab and Whites and stuff making multi-frequency machines where they could work. I think the White Spectra was one that could work in 3 different frequencies at once, and Minelab's always done that, as far as I know, being able to jump.
The first machine I got that was able to deal with the clay and stuff was the Explorer.
That was a good machine. It still is a good machine. I know a lot of people still use them.
I'm almost sorry I didn't, keep it one up, but it got to the point where some of the guys I was hunting with, theirs broke, and I was going to other machines at the time, and I ended up selling them. But I don't regret it now. I got the Equinox, which is a lot better. But I remember my friend Mike got one, and he was walking behind me, and I missed a button that was about 8 inches deep, and he called me back to check the signal and said, "Hey, you walked over a signal," and I had to tune the Nautilus all the way up with the threshold, which I couldn't, you couldn't hunt like that. It was too unstable, but I could actually got a repeatable signal when I turned the threshold all the way up, and but it was so loud and so staticky, but I did hear it, and I thought, man, that was like really upset me. I was like, damn. And the button turned out to be a War of 1812 button with a eagle and it was an artillery button with the cannon on it, and I've never found one of those. And man, that just upset me. I was like,
drives you crazy.
Anyway, I think Mike ended up breaking the machine, and he ordered another one, and he just gave me that one, and I ended up sending it back, and it cost me $500 to get it fixed.
Oh my gosh!
But that was probably a $700-800 machine at the time, I think.
Yeah, and that's big money back then too. It's still big money.
It might have been even. So, and then I think he ended up getting another one, and he switched. Oh, I know what. He switched to the SE Pro, and I ended up buying his other Explorer.
Right.
So I had a lot of, like back then, I always had two of the same detector. I had 2 Nautiluses. I had 2, Explorers.
I did that for a while too. Always made sure you had one extra one.
Yeah, And I had other machines. I had Fishers and all kinds of other machines too, but I just didn't like hunting with them after I hunted with the Explorer. It just that machine would just work in the bad ground, and I could get into an area if there was hot rocks in the ground. I could just bump up the discriminator from 0 to 1, and it would completely knock out the hot rocks. And I was able to pick out stuff in real hot ground.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't super deep, I could pick it out, but the other machines couldn't even hear it. I took it up to this Halo place that I'd gone with the Nautilus, and I found, I think, probably 30 buttons maybe, and I gotten a few nice coins. But I was up there one day with Mike Kelly, and he had a Tesoro Bandito had the new UMAX, and he only had the 9-inch coil on it, or 9.5. I can't remember if it's 9 or 9.5. And he dug like 20 buttons all around me, and I was having a hard time finding buttons. I think I dug 3, and all of them were like dandy buttons. They were huge.
Right.
He was digging like tough buttons, at 4 and 5 inches in the bad ground, and I was like, dang. So when I got to Explorer, I went back up there, and the first day I hunted, I went back over the same spots, and I got 33 buttons. I think that was my record ever in one day. And
I've been freaking out.
I went up there the next week, and I hunted an area that I couldn't hunt with any of the other detectors that I'd ever taken up there. It was so bad. I dug. I got a Pistarine, 2 Real Pistarine, cut in half, about 7 inches down. It read on the meter, and then I remember later on when I got to Deus, I took that up there a few years later, and I hadn't been finding anything with the Explorer. It was just like, I'd probably got my total up on that site to about 300 buttons, and it wasn't a huge site either. It was, but it was a rich site. It was one of the richest people in the United States had lived there. He was actually making $20,000 a year in the mid 1700s in silver.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it was a mill, and there was he was cutting down an acre of woods to make to fire up these smelters that they were making pig iron, and they were actually going down the creek and across the Potomac and up the Potomac a ways, and going down Mattawoman Creek into Maryland. And there was some place where they were getting iron ore, and then they were bringing it back up the creek, and they were smelting it on the one side. You could actually see the blast furnaces that they used. Like some of these might have, this place was dated from like 1734 or something like that, but we were finding stuff even earlier. I mean, there were several cobs found there, and I found the King Charles II, cufflinks there, which are 1660 to 1685. So, that site was pretty crazy. It was if you went down the creek from that site, up, just as you got to the Potomac, if you looked up on the left or toward the north, there was this huge hill, and George Washington's attaché or staff officer owned that house. It was built in 1700. So, and then across on the other side is where the Fort Texas and the Wright House was, where I dug all the reals and a lot of Civil War stuff. So, those creeks, or if you're in an area and you got colonial activity and stuff, check the creeks. I mean,
it's like a road. That's like a highway right there. That's what a lot of them used. I mean,
it's the same thing with the Civil War soldiers. When they went into winter camp, they had to have water.
Yep.
They didn't camp a mile away from water. They camped maybe no more than a half a mile because, they had to drag all that water back to camp. And one of the things that I found was, I'd be in the camp and you could almost find like a path that led to where the water was. And along that path was buttons and stuff. You just didn't find many bullets because they probably didn't take their guns and their, and their.
Well, they might have used them for fishing weights. And we find a lot of those, a lot of 3-ringers and stuff turned into fishing weight. Other than that, yeah, they weren't. You don't find a lot of drop bullets or anything.
But there was like this one camp that we were digging a lot of buttons at, and I noticed there was a creek about maybe, I don't know, probably 300 feet away from the camp. You walk down a hill and came up on this creek, and one day I wasn't finding much, and so I was kind of looking around, and I saw where you could tell where they walked down this hill. It was almost like a pathway, and you figure there was probably a couple hundred soldiers maybe in that camp, and they were walking to that creek back and forth for months, during the winter, and so I started walking down that path, and man, it was unbelievable how many buttons I found, and grommets and rivets and knapsack hooks, things like that.
And J-hooks, yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you find a fatty Indian head or 3-cent piece or something like that. But that was, I started looking for places like that because I thought, man, they would go down and they probably would wash and stuff, and they would probably lose stuff, right there, and that's a hot spot, that people don't really think about. You also have picket posts. All the camps back then had surrounded their camp with what they call picket posts, and they usually would be up on a hill, and they would never be on the very top of the hill. They'd always be on what's called the military crest. Around the it would be just below the top of the hill where you couldn't be silhouetted. Nobody could see you from a distance.
Right.
So I would go on these, I would check these hills. If I saw a hill close to the camp, I'd go up on that hill and I'd just start circling the hill right about the military crest. And it was unbelievable. There'd just be stuff all over the place because they'd camp the night there. They'd have the pickets out there and they would be there night and day, they would, people would, probably be up there for a couple of days, and they would muster back to the camp, and they'd put a bunch more up there, It's
right.
Probably a regular thing. But that was another spot, and I remember, people would walk right up to the top of the hill and search the hill, and they wouldn't find much or nothing, and then they'd leave. And then they'd see me, and they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Man, it's all this stuff is all along the military crest here, They said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, guys weren't going to silhouette themselves, If they did, people could see them for miles if they were up on the very top.
Yeah, they see motion, movement, whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but I mean, just a silhouette, up there, and you didn't want the enemy to see you. You wanted to see the enemy coming. You didn't want them to see you up there.
Right.
That's just you have to think like like the soldiers did. Another thing they needed was wood. And they would, after 3 or 4 months, there would be no wood within a mile of their camp. And so they would have to move the camp usually to another area where they had wood and water,
definitely.
They didn't always stay in the same spot.
A lot of the pictures you see is all, like there's no trees around. It's like they're all by fields. It wasn't by fields. They chopped all the trees down. The camp, 250,000 troops, they're going to go through some wood. And then, that's why they had a problem with a lot of disease, too. The dysentery and the whatever. I mean, you get thousands of troops in there. The water supply gets corrupted pretty quick.
That's another thing. Yeah. They started thinking about that kind of stuff, and the latrines and, cleaning up the camp. And, they started, being more conscious of that, during the Civil War. I think before that, people really didn't know a whole lot about disease and stuff. But
well, they didn't have so many people per capita, for an area either, so they didn't run into this. But
it's like in Stafford County, they had 150,000 troops camped the whole winter after the Battle of Fredericksburg, after they got smashed there.
Yeah.
And well, it wasn't just Stafford. They camped all up and down, Route 1 and stuff, and it was just amazing how many. Most of it's gone now. It's pitiful. We never thought Stafford County would be, developed like it is, but it's almost become Northern Virginia. It's crazy. It's
Yep.
It takes during a rush hour. It takes from Alexandria down there now. It takes 4 hours unless you use Easy Pass. And we used to take. Normally it would take about 45 minutes on the weekend to get down there and back, but not anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm probably going to wrap up the show, Craig. As you all heard, I got people ringing my house already at 7:30 in the morning. Probably my wonderful niece. Love her to death, but she calls at 7:30 and they're on speaker out there, so sorry about that. But yeah, I got to get going. Getting going, if I could talk right. Get going today and get a few things done. And I'm going to try to hunt tomorrow, Craig. I mean, it's been, we went from, I think it was 85 degrees 2 days ago. Now it's down into the 40s with a wind blowing. It feels like 35 or whatever. And so, yeah, we're
Poor
jumping
guy.
around.
I'm looking at 17 right now.
Oh, brother, I mean, it's like you add about 100% humidity to your weather, and then put that wind in there, you probably feel like below zero. That's what it does down here. People don't get that, that you're not getting any snow or nothing. But man, it gets down into the 40s. That wind blows, and with that humidity, it's like a damp, damp cool. It goes right through you, man. I was surprised about that. Some of my friends come down here and they brought shorts and t-shirts, and they ended up buying winter clothes because it's like they're freezing their butts off. Everybody yesterday was looking like Nanook of the North, I'm out there in a t-shirt, but I don't mind. I don't mind the cold. It's just the wind that goes through you, so I might wear a windbreaker once in a while, but or a long sleeve like t-shirt type. I mean, that's what I'm usually okay detecting in this time of year. But yeah, it's most of the people, like Pauline's in her hoodie and all this other stuff. I said, man, y'all think it's cold out here? This is comfortable. So this is good relic hunting weather. So I'm going to head out there tomorrow. Guys, thanks for listening in and everything. And be sure to like and follow the show. And we'll be on tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I guess, we're going to be on Relics Radio next, the 26th, the day after. Yeah, Thursday, next week after Christmas. With Loy and Mark Hoover and Tennessee Jeff and everything, and probably hopefully have a bunch of fun. Everybody, the guys do different shows on Spreaker.com about metal detecting. All of us have different formats, but we all love metal detecting. That's what it comes from. The common denominator. So if you get a chance, listen to their show and everything. They just had a good one last night. Dwight Collin from New Age Goonies was on, and also, and I can't remember her name, so forgive me, the lady from Macro.
I think her name is Delic.
Yep. How you say it, Craig? Because I
think it's Delic.
Delic? Okay.
Yeah, it's a woman, a Turkish woman that
right.
Basically the face of Mark
here in the U.S. Yeah. Well, I butcher names so bad. I don't want to butcher her name. I'm just real horrible with names. So, Craig said it. I'll call her D. How about that? Jeez.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I like what she said, and I think she's doing a wonderful job on the company. It's the hottest detector going right now.
Yeah, I was kind of upset because I was on there for a little while. I think I took it to Bill Marsh and Mike, Mark Hoover and all that. And my cell phone would go. I'd have the show, and all of a sudden the sound would go out. I'm like, I knew it was my cell phone. It's not their show or anything. I had to shut everything down, turn it all back on my cell phone. I usually listen to this stuff on my laptop, and that way I can text easier and stuff. I was like halfway through Dwight Collin, what he was talking about and everything, and I made a few chats or messages or whatever on there, and then my phone did it again. And I got home, I just took the phone in the house and I told Pauline, turn the TV off. We're listening to Relics Radio, and we were sitting there listening. It went on for about 5 minutes, and the phone cut out again. I was just, I got so aggravated because like every time I got into the show and was hearing what was going on, then I'm coming back, and of course everybody on chat was on a different topic, and the show had already made a turn to whatever direction it was going, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to the archive show, and I never did get to listen to her. I'm going to have to listen to the archive today. I'm going to do that I got to go to the VFW post, and we're doing our big fish dinner. I'm just going to leave it on the speaker system in the kitchen.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering because they were saying that she was going to be on, and then they had, Dwight on, but, I was thinking, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to have her on, and then she came on late.
Yeah.
It was 5 a.m. in the morning.
Right. That's a big, that's a big problem for people overseas.
And she said the first thing she's going to do when she got off the show was have coffee.
Yep.
And I was thinking, you should have had it before.
Well, that's what I love about doing this morning show, Craig. I mean, we talked about this before. I mean, we have like Gavin and Paul. Gavin's in Australia, and Paul Forsyth, he's in over in New Zealand, and we have guys from the UK and everything. And the time difference, these guys can actually, it's almost midnight or whatever in Australia or something like that. It's in the evening, so heck, Gavin can sit down and have a beer and listen to the show when we're having coffee. It's just nice to be able to include, because it's a worldwide audience. I mean, I like having, and Gavin's always on here, talking about different stuff and a lot of good ideas and stuff. And it's nice to have friends around the world that can listen in and not have to take away from their sleep pattern in order to listen to us. We do the Saturday night show, and that's morning for Gavin. And he's actually in summertime now. It's weird, man. It's kind of funny when you think about it. We're in wintertime, he's in summertime. You never know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I do have to jump off here, Craig. I got to head to the post. Oh shoot, we're getting ready for Christmas. Got dinner tonight and everything. So, I gotta get jiggy with it and get everything ready. So we'll kind of talk again tomorrow night, guys, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Check in, tell a friend. Maybe somebody new to the hobby or thinking about getting into it. Let them know about the shows, and maybe they'll find some interest in it and get involved and be a part of a good hobby. But with that, I'm gonna leave you guys go, and I'll talk to you tomorrow night. See you later.